Welcome to Headline Hub Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The news hit like a thunderclap. Canada buys German submarines. It was a headline that no one saw coming, a move that sent shockwaves through newsrooms and government offices alike. For decades, Canada's military procurement had followed a predictable script, but this announcement shattered expectations overnight. Headlines blared across the world, and in Washington, shock quickly turned to disbelief. The United States, Canada's closest ally and neighbor, had always assumed it would be the first and only choice for such a critical defense purchase. For decades, Canada buying American was a given, part of the unwritten rules of North American defense. The two countries had built a partnership on trust, shared interests, and a long history of military cooperation. This deal with Germany shattered that tradition, signaling a dramatic shift in Canada's defense strategy and international alliances. American defense contractors, long used to winning Canadian contracts, were blindsided. Years of business relationships and expectations evaporated in an instant, leaving many scrambling to understand what had changed. The symbolism stung more than the lost revenue. It was a public rebuke, a sign that Canada was no longer content to play the junior partner in the relationship. Canada, once the quiet junior partner, was now making bold, independent moves. The country's leaders spoke with new confidence, emphasizing sovereignty and the need to chart their own course in a rapidly changing world. The submarine deal was negotiated in secret, bypassing the usual cross-border consultations. Canadian officials worked quietly behind closed doors, determined to keep the process free from outside influence. In Washington, the sense of betrayal was palpable. The alliance's foundation, built on decades of trust and cooperation, was suddenly in question. American officials wondered what other surprises might be in store. This wasn't just a business deal, it was a declaration of strategic independence. Canada was making it clear that it would choose its own path, even if it meant breaking with tradition. Canada was signaling it would prioritize its own interests, even if it meant ruffling American feathers. The message was unmistakable. Canada was ready to stand on its own, no matter the diplomatic fallout. The world took notice. Canada had stepped out of America's shadow. International observers speculated about what this bold move might mean for the balance of power in North America and beyond. The comfortable, predictable partnership was over. The old certainties had vanished, replaced by a new era of uncertainty and recalibration. A new, uncertain chapter in US-Canada relations had begun. Both sides now faced tough questions about trust, loyalty, and the future of their alliance. The northern border suddenly felt a little less familiar, a quiet line on the map now charged with new meaning as two old friends learned to navigate a changed world. This is the first time in over 70 years that Canada has made a major military purchase, marking a significant milestone in its defense strategy. Historically, Canada has relied heavily on its southern neighbor, the United States, for military collaborations and acquisitions. This new move represents a bold step in redefining its defense posture, without the US as its primary partner. This decision underscores a growing desire for independence in military affairs, reflecting a broader trend of diversification in international alliances. The deal breaks a tradition of deep military integration and signals a shift in Ottawa's thinking. For decades, the US-Canada military relationship has been a cornerstone of North American security. But now, Canada is exploring new horizons. Canada is now prioritizing strategic autonomy and seeking partnerships with other stable democracies. This approach not only diversifies its defense portfolio, but also strengthens its position on the global stage. By choosing Germany, Canada is buying into a different kind of alliance, one based on shared values, not just geography. This partnership with Germany highlights a commitment to mutual respect and common goals, emphasizing democratic principles and technological innovation. It's a direct challenge to the old rules of the US-Canada relationship. This new direction may cause friction, but it also opens up opportunities for Canada to redefine its role in international affairs. The message: Canada will act independently, even within its own hemisphere. This newfound independence is a declaration of Canada's intent to be a more assertive player on the world stage. This is a coming-of-age moment for Canadian foreign policy. It represents a maturation of its international strategy, where Canada is no longer just a follower, but a leader in its own right. The predictable partnership is gone, replaced by a more transactional, uncertain future. This shift may bring challenges, but it also offers Canada the chance to forge new paths and alliances, shaping a future that aligns with its national interests and values. To truly understand Canada's dramatic pivot in global trade policy, we need to rewind to the pivotal year of 2018. That year marked a turning point in the relationship between Canada and its most important trading partner, the United States. In a move that stunned many, the Trump administration imposed steep tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, justifying the decision under the banner of national security. This rationale was met with disbelief on both sides of the border, as Canada had long been considered a steadfast ally. For Canadians, the tariffs felt like a gut punch, a sudden and unexpected betrayal by their closest friend and neighbor. The sense of shock rippled through communities, from factory floors to family dinner tables. The tariffs didn't just disrupt trade. They shattered a century-old trust and unleashed chaos for thousands of businesses that had been built on the promise of free and open markets. The psychological blow was arguably even more severe than the economic losses. Suddenly, Canadians realized that their prosperity could be threatened overnight, not by distant rivals, but by their closest ally. In urgent meetings, Canadian leaders came to a sobering realization. The United States could weaponize trade policy at any moment, turning economic tools into instruments of pressure. The era of assuming automatic American goodwill was over. The foundation of trust that had underpinned decades of cooperation was now cracked, perhaps permanently. In Ottawa, policymakers began to see Canada's deep reliance on the U.S. market as a dangerous vulnerability, one that could no longer be ignored. It was in the midst of this crisis that the seeds of the German submarine deal were quietly planted. Canada started looking for new partners, new alliances, and new ways to secure its future. Even after the tariffs were eventually lifted, the scars remained. The sense of security and predictability in cross-border trade had been fundamentally shaken. Canada learned a hard lesson. Even the closest friendship is no guarantee against the rise of protectionism or sudden policy shifts. From this moment of crisis, Canada's journey toward forging new alliances and diversifying its global partnerships truly began, a path that would reshape its future on the world stage. After the tariff shock, Canada acted decisively. Ottawa pursued new trade agreements, championing global free trade as Washington turned inward. The CPTPP opened Asia-Pacific markets. CETA gave access to Europe. These deals were strategic moves to reduce dependence on the U.S. Canada also courted investment from Europe and Asia, promoting itself as a stable gateway to North America. Diplomats built new alliances, signaling Canada's commitment to a rules-based order. The pivot wasn't just economic, it was about building political capital and a distinct global identity. Canada was no longer content to be America's sidekick. This repositioning set the stage for bold decisions like the submarine deal. A new, independent Canada was emerging. When replacing its submarines, Canada wanted more than hardware. It wanted a reliable partner. Germany, a stable G7 nation, offered predictability and a commitment to international rules. The advanced German submarines came with technology sharing, promising Canadian jobs and expertise. The deal revitalized Canada's shipbuilding industry and built domestic capacity. It also strengthened ties with NATO and the EU, enhancing interoperability with European allies. Canada's security relationships diversified, reducing reliance on the US. The partnership embedded Canada in European defense networks. Choosing Germany was a statement of shared values and vision. Canada's future would be built on alliances with stable, democratic middle powers. The submarine deal was a concrete step toward that future. Canada's move came at a cost. U.S. defense contractors lost billions, and American workers faced layoffs. Political backlash was swift, with lawmakers decrying the loss of cross-border jobs. Trade tensions led to higher prices and disrupted supply chains for Canadian consumers. Everyday life became more expensive as the economic relationship cooled. In the US, communities reliant on defense contracts felt betrayed. On both sides, businesses struggled to adapt to new realities. The transition was painful, but Canada saw it as the price of independence. Short-term strain was traded for long-term sovereignty. Canada's new doctrine rests on three pillars: trade diversification, strategic alliances, and economic sovereignty. First, diversify trade to avoid over-reliance on the US. Second, build alliances with stable democracies like Germany, Japan, and Australia. These partnerships go beyond trade. They include security and technology. Third, defend economic sovereignty, protecting industries and scrutinizing foreign investment. Canada is now proactive, not passive, in defending its interests. This strategy is about resilience and global connection, not isolation. The submarine deal is the logical result of this new doctrine. The geopolitical shift is felt most in border towns. Once, crossing for work or family was routine. Now, friction and uncertainty rule. Businesses relying on cross-border trade face delays and new barriers. Family ties and community bonds are strained by officialdom and suspicion. The human cost is real. Friendship replaced by anxiety. For millions, the border is no longer a seam that joins, but a line that divides. Canada's submarine deal isn't hostility, it's self-definition. After decades in America's shadow, Canada is stepping into the light. True security now means diverse partnerships and sovereign capabilities. The deal is a symbol of confidence and a willingness to take risks for long-term goals. Canada seeks partnership with the US as equals, not subordinates. By building global alliances, Canada is now a key middle power and bridge builder. Its influence and options have grown. The world sees Canada anew, sovereign, strategic, and globally minded. The relationship with the US is more complex, but Canada has chosen independence. This is a new chapter, one of global connection and quiet confidence. Canada is ready to shape its own destiny.